Hello, friends. This is Mano Ilya, and you are listening to The Study of Stuff. And thank you all for tuning in. This is the interview segment of the show. Today, I'll be interviewing the great Amit Goswami and Valentina Onisor. But before we get to that interview, I wanted to say a big, huge thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you who tuned into the very first episode that I did with the great David Whitehead, the Truth Warrior. My God, what a great episode that was. And the response I got, I am truly grateful. Wow, all the comments, questions, and support were incredible. I really am grateful. Thank you. If you want to keep up to date with all things Study of Stuff and Mano Ilya, maybe even check out my music, visit manoilya.com. Subscribe and make sure you keep up with everything that's coming down the pipeline. Now for today's show, I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing the great Amit Goswami and amazing Valentina Onisor. Who is Amit Goswami? Well, Amit Goswami is a quantum physicist who was a professor of physics at the University of Oregon from 1968 to 1997. Since then, he's gone on to write bajillions and bajillions and bajillions of books. Many books. Such as The Self-Aware Universe, The Physics of the Soul, The Quantum Doctor, God is Not Dead, Quantum Creativity, The Everything Answer book, and of course, his recent book that he co-authored with the great Valentina Onisor, and we'll be talking a lot about, The Quantum Brain. Valentina Onisor. Who is Valentina Onisor? Well, Valentina Onisor, MD, is a practicing physician who specializes in family medicine, alternative medicine, and integrates aspects of alternative medicine within her medical practice. She is committed to studying consciousness, both from a theoretical and practical approach, helping Amit Goswami mix science and spirituality. In this conversation, we go deep, really deep down the rabbit hole, my friends. We talk everything from quantum physics, consciousness, to what is consciousness, what is mind, what is brain, what is the heart, and how does it pertain to all of this? Ooh, and the science of reincarnation, and the science of channeling, which helps very much for our next episode with the great Paul Selig here on The Study of Stuff. Now, without any further ado, here's my interview with the great Amit Goswami and Valentina Onisor. All right, and we are live, and this is The Study of Stuff. Thank you all for tuning in. Today I have two special guests, amazing guests. I'm super excited to be interviewing Amit and Valentina. And we will be tackling a number of different issues, topics, and subjects, mostly based off the work from their current book, The Quantum Brain, and as well we'll be touching on some subjects that are also in quantum spirituality, and we'll hear a little bit about what they have coming down the pipeline as well, which sounds kind of interesting. So I'd like to begin by having you both kind of tell us a little bit about your journey on how you found yourself on this path of trying to combine spirituality and science, and how did you find each other, and how did this relationship start, and where's it going?
Okay, big one. Shall I start? All right. So, I became interested in consciousness research from a intuitive thought that came to me back in 1973 about there is a way to live life which is congruent between thinking, living, and livelihood.
Yes.
So that got me into changing the physics I was doing because, physicists today, uh, unless they're very special people to take risks, they do the usual thing. And the usual things are all in the paradigm thing. And in the paradigm, everything is just very complex theories and experimental data. However much the image I know is very good, but the image actually is not quite true. Most people do very boring stuff, let's put it that way. And
Definitely.
and most important, there's no congruence between living and thinking. So I was willing to change that, and that brought me to quantum physics. That brought me to consciousness research. That brought me to idea of transformation. I was at a conference in 2016 talking about my work. We are trying to initiate a new university of transformational education. And Valentina came for learning what we are doing, just to examine. She was looking for something, I guess, and that's where we met. And immediately it appeared to me that she's a good person, right person to do the consciousness research with me. So I invited her in during that period, immediately following the conference. And she followed through. Usually people's enthusiasm disappear after the
Yes.
workshop high. Disappear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
I've seen
nothing
that.
like
I've seen that plenty of times.
is very committed to spirituality, and ever since we have been working together.
Okay, and where is that going?
Amazing.
Amit, this was the second question.
Uh, First, you tell your
Yes.
story, and then we'll talk about where is it
All
going.
right. I like your questions, really. So, why for me was the marriage between science and spirituality was really there since I was very, very early age, really. So I grew up in a family of doctors and priests, and all of them very open, strongly opinionated, So I had to become one of this kind of like truly opinionated. And this, by the way, this is something which Amit likes about me because I know how to fight, And at the end of all the fight, truly, it's such a wonderful quantum leap which happens. I could see that, because he even told me these last days, that I'm so happy that you just know how to fight. And then the point is, fight truly, like, be authentic, follow your heart,
Yes.
because that's why you're fighting truly in that way. And in the end of that, just stay there. So stay next to the people, next to your team, next to the person that you're fighting on, whether in a love relationship or
Yes.
in a work relationship, and then you will see something so beautiful is coming up. So that's one thing. So I grew, as I said, in such kind of family, and I put questions, like these fundamental questions, since I was very young. And yeah, my father was a doctor, so since I was in a very early age, again, interested in healing, especially, but not so much in the conventional way, because it was immediately right in my face that that's by far not the healing that I was there for. I was just so hungry for deep knowledge. And then I discovered the yoga system, and that immediately, and very, very soon, I went through some stages of transformation. I learned about transmutation, sublimation of my the inner world. Truly transformed very, very quickly. I have to say, like a few months after I started this kind of practices, already I was into Christianity practices, and I was going to monasteries and all that. So I was kind of a very passionate kid. And then I was just very, how to say, lucky, if you want to say, to find in my way people which and schools that truly, I don't know, I got so much of the wisdom which exists, whether it's related with Ayurveda, with the old traditional Indian medicine, or Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and all that. So all of this, they were not contradicting themselves for me. They were coming together. And when I met Professor Goswami, so it was in India, and actually a lady from this from Pyramid Valley, she was inviting me to meet Amit because she had the plan to create a university, and that's how we met. So she had this plan, but of course that university didn't happen. But from the first time when we met, it was this click which showed me very clearly and immediately what I have to add to uh, Professor Goswami's work. And it was obvious and was beautiful, even if it was not from the beginning. Of course, like, you don't see from the beginning the whole thing. Yeah, you just see
Yes,
something,
of
and
course.
it's that feeling that it has to be, and it is. So it's just beautiful. And then we you know we have a few people in our team, and yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's so much joy and passion because it makes all the sense in the world.
Absolutely, and I'm really happy you guys both are combining both your talents and putting them together, because it's something that I think that we really need the clarification. between the world of the quantum physicist and, of course, integrated medicine and such. And it's an easy way to combine consciousness with the science of the nuts and bolts of things, let's say. So then my next question kind of leads into something that's a very big topic within the book, and that is the dualistic nature of self and the mind. And we see this constantly, whether we look at it on the physical plane and we look at the actual brain physically. There's a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere combined, connected through the corpus callosum. But then, of course, we have the behavioral on the mental aspect, where there's the rational, logical approach versus the creative and abstract approach. And right down to psychology, we still split it yet again dualistically to conscious and subconscious. And the importance of the heart and how this pertains to allow for it to connect, so that we go from dualistic to some form of coherence and connection together. So I was hoping that Amit, maybe you could describe, talk a little bit about the brain, mind versus brain, and then Valentina, if you can flow from there right into the heart, because I mean, it seems like the book was kind of written in that way, and I really enjoyed that. I could kind of hear your voices as I was reading through the book. So the stage is yours.
The biggest problem that has arisen in the Western approach, I don't like to classify things between East West because it's a very arbitrary and false classification.
Me too.
Nevertheless, it did happen. Some actual differences did arise. And in the West, what happened was that Descartes, who was the founder of modern science, one of the founders, he said a sentence that became the philosophical basis of all subsequent Western thought, amazing as it may sound. The sentence was, I think, therefore I am. And that suggested that I am, this is a correlate, this is a consequence of I think. So thinking generates the subject object. So thinking became identified with what we call conscious awareness. That I see an object, I see you, I cognize you as another human being. All this is mental.
Right.
But of course, mind also thinks, and it's much better to think of the mind as container of thoughts, the vehicle we use for thinking, because mind is not the only thing that we have. We also have the capacity of feeling, which is obviously not mental, it's energy that we feel. And then we have intuition. And that is also, there's a mental component of it in the sense that we make a mental representation of it. But it is obvious that intuition is not the mind. In fact, this is where Immanuel Kant, a later philosopher, was very puzzled. He was also Cartesian, Descartes to begin with, but then he was always pointing out, but then how do we introduce this idea of intuition? How do we intuit? What is the difference? But obviously, it is not thought in any form. So these questions eventually have been unsolved. Westerners still, majority of American thinkers, Noam Chomsky called them intellectuals with values. They just
Yep.
don't understand consciousness because they equate consciousness with the mind.
Yes.
Consciousness is the ground of being. This simple idea was uh, creatively intuited uh, by Eastern researchers of consciousness. We made everything complicated by talking about them as spiritual leaders, spiritual wisdom teachers. But the point is that label is a label. They were really researchers of consciousness. What they were saying, Sanskrit, the word Brahman was used. Brahman is everything. That is the statement of consciousness is the ground of all being. All
Yep.
experiences
Yep.
are products of consciousness.
Right.
Notice that later, other people, other consciousness researchers that we also call spiritual teachers, like Jesus, are saying exactly the same thing. So this truth, which was discovered in India 7,000 years ago, has been discovered again and again. In China by Lao Tzu 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago Socrates, in Greece, and then in the Middle East by Jesus. And zillions of times, probably Native American shamans and uh, so forth, many other traditions as well. So, what is consciousness then? These traditions themselves that defined it very well. In the Vedanta, 7,000 years ago, the thought appears that consciousness is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. These are also Sanskrit words. You have to interpret them correctly, and I'm very sorry that even Indians don't interpret these things correctly anymore because they too have bought into the Western philosophical attitude towards consciousness. It's part of the mind. So, but what it's saying, thought is existence. Consciousness is the first existence. From that, every other existence follows. Ground of being. That's what that simple word, sat,
I see.
that stands for. Chit stands for the awareness, what we experience as consciousness. A subject looking at an object. I see you. There is subject and there is object. The subject object split experience is awareness, conscious awareness of the I. And then finally, Ananda. This Ananda is most curious. Why is that in the definition? Usually we define things and then we elaborate, all kinds of things follow. Definition is the beginning and then proliferation.
Right. Right.
Consciousness is not like that because it's the ground of all being. Every being that's going to follow is also part of consciousness itself. It's not beyond consciousness. So Ananda just describes the limitless happiness, expansion of consciousness. And expansion of consciousness is the way to get into the way you talk about the future. Where is it going? Okay, where we are going is precisely increasing states of happiness and increasing states of intelligence to find happiness for ourselves instead of misery and sorrow and suffering. So this is the whole summary. I mean, in that one definition, the whole not only the definition is given, but the whole program of the world is given. It's so amazing. And of course, there are problems because those guys could not understand the brain. Uh, Very little was known at the time, so they could not explain how consciousness manifests in the brain. And so all these things have been happening because of quantum physics. And we finally, Newton started as a science of objects. In
Yes.
Newton's time, he did not have any option. Uh, he did something just fantastic. I cannot even fathom how one starts a science without any idea whatsoever that went before. And he
Do you think
boldly said, that, okay, science is objects. But then how is the subject? How does the subject fit in? Westerners, many philosophers, they don't even ask the question. They ask the question as a mind-brain problem. How is the duality, dualism, and then answer to dualism is monism. So they get into the brain. Everything must be consequences of the brain, material interaction. But that is a very, very poor theory because then we are throwing away bulk of human experience, feelings,
Of course.
intuition, uh, everything that is important, creativity. So, this is how we started, and this is where we are going. We are already we have developed a complete quantum science, and there is still much to do, but we have the basic theories in place.
The foundation, yes.
So let me get back to the question and continue if you want a few more words, because you were
Absolutely.
asking about the left brain, the right brain,
Yep.
and there are all these differences between the women and men, which you need to take in consideration, because we should understand these differences. When we understand these differences, we also know how to tap into our potential, which is not by coincidence that we were born in a woman body or in a man's body, but we also have to see how the difference is related to the brain, because it's obvious that women, we are able to express our emotions due to these qualities, how we process the emotions, and instead men, they are mostly suppressing the emotions. And see, so this is again because of the right or left predominance. And eventually we need to integrate, of course, so it's part of the integration and of all the dichotomies, inner and outer, feminine, masculine. But first of all, we need to be what we are, first of all, so that's part of the journey of the soul, so you start from there. You heard about this androgen, right? But before getting to this androgen, first of all, you need to manifest your qualities, whether feminine or masculine. It's a lot to talk about that, and I know it's not the subject by itself here. And then again, yes, heart. So for me, and not just for me, like we have so much potential at all the levels of our being, and we speak now about the quantum brain, but unless we tap into the power of our hearts, what we are, so truly we are kind of living on the instinctual level, which is the first, if you heard about the chakras, or we can talk about this if you want, but
Absolutely,
otherwise
go
it's
ahead.
just living in the instinctual level. The first three chakras, it's purely instinctual. All these circuits of domination, which you see how much is in the world, manipulation, all this living based of fear, right? Not
Yes.
assuming that courage, that state of a hero from where you start to transform, right? So when
Yep.
you think of courage, it's something which is from the belly and from the heart as well. Okay, so when the heart, you see in the Christian tradition, we have the symbol of the cross, which we do it at this level. And in the shamanic, no, the Native American tradition, they have the the surface of earth is the symbol of, so like it's kind of
Yes.
covering these first three levels. And so then, first of all, we have to also learn to connect with our heart, and then tap through the heart into that what is called non-locality. So one of the
Mhm.
first principle which we need to learn in the quantum way of working is the non-locality. And again, it's easier for women
Yep.
because due to our nature, so we have this capacity to. I mean, if we as women would not be in, unfortunately, what you see, it's all this competition nowadays. Also, the women, instead of becoming feminine, they become feminist. They become like another
Yep.
man. So that's
Well
another
put.
problem. And the women have a lot of power of transformation, of healing. So when women would really take their place in this way, that would, I see it as a way of healing the earth, and even healing this situation as it is right now. Like again, it's part of becoming responsible as a human being as well. But again, so tapping into the heart, because we want it the heart. So
Yep.
yeah, you can do it even if you're not together next to, we are at distance right now, but we
Yes.
can correlate with each other. And then you open such a space, a sacred space, which can bring miracles, and miracles of healing. You're mentioning unconscious, and subconscious, all that. All this is so much underrated nowadays when we speak about
Yes.
quantum healing. This is
True.
the thing which we need to approach. Like you need to be able to deeply relax and go into that what we call incubation, part of the creative process. That's where the miracle of healing is happening. It's you have to prepare with that. It's not like that. And of course, there are so many things to take in consideration. But again, to me, the heart is, I mean, not, I think to Amit also. So the heart is the first place. It's not just the heart, of course. You need to polarize
Yep.
it with the mental and with everything else. But without the heart, what are we really?
100%. No, well put. I really like how you both explained that, especially also how you also added the masculine and feminine and tried to combine it and explain it through concepts of the heart. My next question was going to be about consciousness. I mean, you both obviously spoke quite a bit about consciousness because I pretty much that is the primacy of all things, and I fully agree with that statement. And my definition, of the one, not my definition, but the definition I like to use for consciousness is awareness of being aware. So if I ever have tried to explain it to someone, what I mean, I constantly go to consciousness is the awareness of being aware, and that's a matter of degree, if I understand it correctly. For example, you can say that my daughter is quite a bit more aware than my cat because I don't think my cat sits around asking himself why he's here, right? I mean, I don't know, but I don't think so. As well as we can say on the physical, in terms of medicine and such, we could say, my left foot. I'm not aware of it all the time, most of the time, but it's there. But then when I put my awareness on that left foot, now my attention is put on that foot. I become aware of the feeling of the foot, the temperature of the foot. And it seems to me that quantum physics, the explanation quantum physics has for reality, combined with the concepts in heart math and everything you just described, Valentina, seems to fit very well with how, the access point being attention and awareness. So could you guys talk a little bit about how that pertains to your book in terms of
Let,
healing and explanation of reality?
let me address that. The quote, consciousness is the ability of that we are aware of being aware came from Charles Sturt, who
Yes.
is a parapsychologist in practice. And unfortunately, parapsychologists, I like Charles. I mean, he's a good man. That's not the issue here. The thought, though, is a very limited thought. He did a lot of work about altered states of consciousness in which paranormal opens up. So he's a very good researcher, empirically speaking. But theoretically, consciousness is just a very hard subject. So he missed the boat completely, as completely as possible.
Okay.
Why? Because being aware of being aware is a very secondary aspect of consciousness. That's what defines the ego persona. uh, what happens to us is that yes, we have experiences, and then we can experience the experience again, aware of being aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have an
Mm-hmm.
experience. That's not aware of being aware. That's just being aware. I see
Right.
you. That's awareness. Okay?
Right.
Earth is saying that no, that does not define the ego. And he's right. Ego consciousness indeed is the ability of taking it further. Because I not only see you as you, but I condition it. I become aware, okay, I saw Mano and Mano looks like this, and that's the conditioning I make. And then I make a picture of it. And that picture becomes my ego's description of you.
I
And
see.
you know
Okay.
what happens? When I see you again, maybe 10 years later, and you are a completely different person, I don't know who you are. So,
Okay.
and my mind is not open to accept you. So this causes all kinds of relationship problems because people stay apart from a few months and they're a little different and they complain. Or somebody, a husband or a wife, decides to make a change in life, and the other spouse cannot handle it because they are making their ego aware of being aware. This is the person I know, and therefore, how can you change and have relationship with me? Because I will accept you only in that
I
capacity.
see. Yes, I
So,
see. Ah, I like that. Okay.
aware of being aware is the definition of the ego. It's not consciousness, and has been a problem. So, completely throughout that definition, if you want to proceed spiritually, this is
I
the
do, and
first
I will.
you must not do. No construction of the ego you can trust. So the
Okay. I
world
like
has to
that.
be taken just as it comes in the present moment. And that present moment has no awareness of being aware, just awareness.
You reminded me of Krishnamurti's definition of how he viewed consciousness and how you just explained that.
So, as I said, consciousness is the ground of being, and
Hmm.
it has a characteristic when it manifests. This ground of being aspect of consciousness, just existence itself, is what we call unconscious,
I see.
unmanifest, unconscious and unmanifest. In quantum physics, we call it unmanifest. Quantum physics says objects are possibilities from which we choose, and that's how we create manifestation. But of course, until we choose, there is no manifest experience. What is
Right.
reality before that? Before then, there is only potentiality. And that potentiality, psychologists call unconscious. Unconscious is a misnomer, consciousness is still there. What is
Hmm.
not there is awareness. Unconscious is
I see.
unawareness. So
I see.
think in
Okay.
this way, and then collapse of the quantum measurement. I see you. That is the collapse. I choose to see you, and I choose how I see you. I give the meaning with my mind, and that's how the image becomes. Okay, I'm talking to a human being who is also a personality who interviews people, a philosopher, and so. So that's a construction I give with my consciousness.
I
Okay,
see.
so the awareness consists of a subject and an object that I construct not only with the material body that I see, but also the meaning that I give with the material body, to the material body, including the feeling that I have about you. For example, if
See.
I ask Valentina, what do you think of Mano? She will not very much talk about your intellectual capacity. She'll say, "Oh, yes, she has a good presence," or something like that. I liked his energy, she would say. So, this is the thing. And we're missing all that by restricting that consciousness is in a pigeonhole as an object that somehow is aware of being aware.
So you're saying basically that the definition of defining the parameters of the object will obviously put that object in a restricted manner. So, for example, if you already determine what something is, it can't be anything but what you've just determined it being. For example, you gave the example of the relationship of one partner changing. That expectation of that's how I expect her to be, that person I first met, and then if she evolves, all of a sudden I might be disappointed. Why would you evolve? Well, what if you view the awareness of being aware from the perspective of the Godhead, let's say, or whatever you consider the ultimate all to be? I like the term the all. Yes, Valentina, go.
So, what we do to avoid this habit is to try to take any situation without previous construction,
Right.
without the thinking about awareness of being awareness. I will construct this event later, because
I
it's the
see.
constructing the event later that causes that all the problems that we have is creating the future of how is this present experience going to influence the future. We make up a future already. St.
Got it.
Augustine used to call it we live, well, so that's what St. Augustine's word. He used to call it either we are thinking of the past or we are thinking of the future. We never live in the present.
Right.
Initially, a poet said we live before and after. We never live in the present. And
That's
this is
true.
the problem. This present centeredness is what we have to bring in. It is a fact that brain, unfortunately, makes memory, and memory is part of manifestation, cannot be avoided. And
Hmm.
therefore, the brain's job is to present this ego. Brain gives
Right.
us the ego and for good reason, because the ego is also something we need. We need those memory banks. We need the software that we build with the memory banks, because those software is going to build us better software in the future, the creative software.
Right.
So brain is all necessary, but we don't use it unnecessarily. That which is not necessary to frame frame our memories and frame our conceptualization of what we are experiencing. We must keep only those necessary things. What are the necessary things? Those are the things of meaning and purpose.
Right.
And
That makes
already
sense.
mentioned archetypes, so those are the things that archetypes give us. Archetypes are direct messages of consciousness. If you want to know consciousness, the rule is very simple. Pay attention to the archetypes and worry about how do I make representation of these archetypes in the brain so that my behavior changes. Not behavior in this stuck in this ego, but
Hmm.
behavior that can delve into the higher transformational aspects of reality, which is eventually is what will change reality and civilization will build. Right.
Let me come in with some
Absolutely.
preparatory practical things. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm the practical many times. So, um, obviously, first step would be to work in training our attention, and also seeing which of the outer factors are taking it away, because when you're not attentive to something, you're attentive to something else,
Yep.
and you so much information processing and so much bombarding internet and all that. Obviously it is affecting a lot. We are paying so much, so we are paying for these apps in your phones. You pay $2 whatever, but we are getting the internet for free, but it's not for free. It's costing so much of our mental capacity and of
That's
our
right.
energy of living, and all that. And that's one thing. So we have to see what's happening with our attention. If you don't train our attention, of course you're missing this kind of moments. And also what's happening is that we try to click a picture of all these moments and we become like robotic. We are just going into this how to say, like the controlled state of the ego, which just wants to control.
Yep.
And but it's not like that in a relationship. You see immediately when your lover is not present and spontaneous. It's like you're with the machine there. You're not so interested anymore,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So it's a lot. I mean, also we have our own masks, which are there initially maybe from the childhood to protect us from some things, and we don't see the things the way they are. We see the things the way we are, obviously, or when we are suffering or with all kind of problems. again, we don't see the reality. We think it's the reality, but it's not. It's actually, and you have to assume this kind of work, not in a state of victimhood, but in a state of responsibility,
I like
and
how you put that.
eventually cultivate this maturity, which unfortunately humanity is not so much there yet. So we are kind
Yeah.
of an immature species. Just look around and see all this, even the domination circuits, and all this.
Absolutely.
I'm giving you something, and only because if you're giving me something. So if we are on this level, that's far from where we can be and we should be.
Fully agreed. Yeah, I like that you, because that was my next question. I was wanted to get into attention and how to develop that, and the importance that if you don't have control of your own attention, someone else will, whether it be someone on the gadgets that you just described, and if they have your attention and they're holding you, they being the person that's presenting you with this distraction, they also have, in some ways, your consciousness. They're controlling how
Yeah,
you filter your consciousness through. So I
and
think there was an old quote I heard someone say: a chance favors a controlled mind."
yeah,
Maybe the
and the thing is, you're
yeah,
losing your power of choice. That's the
yes,
thing. About choice, you're not choosing anymore. So
right,
something else is choosing there, a monkey mind there. And of course, most of the cases, all there's some skaras, vasanas from other incarnations, all that. So
yeah,
when you're able to take a breath and stay in the present moment and choose, that's another story. But we don't even know which are our choices. We just think in
yes,
the
good
deterministic
point,
way that it's just left or right. But it's
good
not like
point,
that.
good point.
It doesn't have to be like that.
That's a good way of thinking of it. Like by paying attention to that, you can actually select the choice. You have choice. You have control of the choice that you make in that present moment, which also ties into what Amit was talking about, being present and mindful of the moment. Of course, very
Even,
important stuff. Sorry.
even that is complicated because, yes, I
Okay.
do have choices, but I have choices only to choose among the thoughts that I know.
Yes.
I cannot choose what I don't know. And
Yes.
therefore, the trick is much more than that. What Valentina said is absolutely correct at the beginning. I stay with the stuff that I know. I don't
Right.
allow myself to deviate from attention because if I do that, then what will happen? Consciousness will choose by itself and choose according to probability. Consciousness usually will throw at me what I usually think.
Right. Whatever
That's
you're
not
accustomed
thinking
to.
at the present moment. So
Yes.
thinking at the present moment is the most important thing. So I choose the thought, meaningful and purposeful thought, and stay there. That's the first thing we have to learn. And
Yeah.
next thing we have to learn is to say that the answer may not be this. So I create an open,
Yes.
and
Yes. Leave possibility for other things.
this is why in spiritual tradition there is all this talk about silence. Let the
Yes.
thought come from
Yes.
silence.
Yes.
Because if the
Yes.
thought comes from silence, we similarly have a practice of intention, where
Hmm.
we do the intention setting, then we prescribe silence.
Yes.
Prayer, but prescribe silence. In that
Yes.
silence, consciousness can speak, unconscious speaks, and then we can have a new thought. That's what intuition is
Yes. Like
facilitated.
the deep dive down and allow silence, be still and know. And within that moment, great thing. I mean, that's where most songs I've ever written came from. So what that kind of takes me into where I want to go next, which is reincarnation. I really enjoyed that part of the book. It really got me thinking. So I want to discuss about reincarnation, near-death experience, OBEs, out-of-body experiences, remote viewing, and channeling. They all seem to be bubbling up from the same fabric. They're just different perspectives or a different point of view of similar phenomena, let's say, and we've just defined them in different ways. But as a musician, I know that many times I've written songs years ago, and when I read back the lyrics, first of all, sometimes I don't even know where the lyrics came from. I'm like, I didn't know I was able to do this. It felt like a channeling, let's say. And when I would read them back, many of my lyrics, I'm telling you, it was like I had premonitions of stuff to come or developments of myself or people to meet and odd things like that. And to tie this all in with my next interview will be with Paul Selig, who's a channel. I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Selig's work, but having you guys explain all of these things, channeling, remote viewing, and reincarnation, and how they fit, might help my listeners for next podcast with Paul and channeling.
Yeah, we were very pleased to discover that there is brain data in favor of reincarnation. Reincarnation is a huge mystery because usually people cannot think of anything that survives as an abstract thing. We always think that things that survive, they have to be more and more concrete. Our whole philosophy, our whole worldviews are based on what is real. Real is what is concrete, like real estate. That gives you
Yes.
an idea of what we value, right?
Yes.
So from that, to understand that no, that's not really real because it comes and goes in our experience. What is really real is what is true of the I that is developing. I
Mm.
starts as an ego based by the very limited base level human condition, but then it grows, personal growth with creativity. And brain is capable of that because brain not only has the conditioned brain, Newtonian brain, but also quantum brain.
Hmm.
But then how does the progress actually takes place and what happens when we die or in the process of death, like near death experience? Or how is it that somebody has an eye that is replaced by another eye because they're channeling some other
Right.
person?
Right.
How do these things happen? So what defines the I? We define the I in a very straightforward way. One straightforward way is the present-centered experiencer of experiences. Another way, the awareness of being aware. Okay, fine. So we have two definitions of ego and then what we call quantum self. But of course, when you grow, personally grow, then there are all these intermediate stages of development.
Right.
We call it traditional name, and traditional name is soul.
Yes.
Unfortunately, of course, it is true that the people who developed the soul theory has also realized that for developing consciousness, people of developing consciousness, the soul is the essence of the I. Soul is defined by ego's character. No, not ego's character, self's character. What is character? Character is the trait that is part and parcel of you. Like for me, being a physicist is not just describe what I do, but what I am. My
Yes.
thinking
Okay.
is like physicist thinking.
Right.
So musicians is musician. It's not what the musician does. Musician being is associated with music. That's when a true musician is a musician. Similarly, and so lover, same thing. The true lover is one who loves. When he loves, that is what his being is the character of loving. It does not go away. A lover cannot hate any person. So we know such lovers, we call them mystic. Jesus was one. They cannot hate. It's impossible for them. They are lovers. So in that way. Now how does the character build? This is what I discovered. And this is in the book Physics of the Soul. I discovered that these character traits and habit patterns that happens, things that we learn, habit patterns is a way of making character traits. We
Hmm.
make those habits which we like, we make them into our defining character. They are not memorized in the brain. They are memorized non-locally.
Right.
This
Right.
idea that memory is not stored in the brain. There are memories of things that we learn and make habits. They are stored outside of the brain, has been
Like
verified by
morphogenetic
scientists.
fields.
That's what that chapter is about. And it's an amazing thinking because that explains all the confusion of how something can reincarnate when I die. Because the brain
Gotcha.
dies with which all the memory goes, but only the memory that are local in the brain, but not the memory which is non-local, which is registered not in the brain but in outside of the brain, that domain of potentiality that I was talking about. This is what makes up the greater unconscious. The unconscious Local unconscious is our personal unconscious. That goes away when I die. But the unconscious also has a non-local component, part of collective unconscious that Carl Jung called it.
Yep.
So my non-local memory exists as part of that non-local aspects of consciousness in
I
another
see.
domain of reality, which is outside of special time. Once you understand this, reincarnation becomes very clear. And once reincarnation becomes very clear, it is also clear that every incarnation, if we build character, if we build the soul a little bit, next
Hmm.
incarnation
Hmm.
I build the soul a little more, and
Hmm.
little
Hmm.
more, and little more, and that's how we grow.
Ah, okay. I like that. I like that explanation. Valentina,
Valentina,
yes, please.
Um, so there is this Tibetan book, Tibetan tradition, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. I don't know if you're
Mhm.
familiar with that.
I am, yes.
Okay. Of course, there are lots of codes there, and you need to learn how to do it well. And recently, I put it in practice. My father passed away recently,
I'm
and
sorry to hear that.
but it was very, what can I say? It was, I have to say, like I could watch all this process, how it can be, and it was good in his case, truly. Like by in the last months, he was becoming truly so wise, and he was really having access. I mean, I was trying to guide him a little bit and to explain him, not just mentally, in some ways, because it's very important if you're speaking about channeling and how you can
Yes.
help a person after leaving the physical world. Because truly you can help a person if you can do it and if you know what you're doing, and also if you establish this no local correlation with him or with her just before, at least, and if there's of course a level of respect, and to know that there's something else more than we know with the usual thinking.
Hmm.
And he could, I mean, he was a doctor, he was a quite good doctor, and he was so much materialistic when he was younger, but gradually he just could not process whatever he had. He had a few health problems, and eventually the body could not help anymore, But still, at the level of like the spiritual level and mentally, he could truly have very, very strong intuitions, even about reincarnations. Even before, he would not talk about these kind of things, But
Yep.
again, by when that moment approached, he had this very, very strong. He said, "I cannot even tell you. Like, he was trying to describe what is an intuition, because he didn't know about these kind of things, And now he totally knew. And when I told him about the white bright light, which, by the way, is the thing which is describing all these near-death experiences as the first thing, and that's actually like it's the first chance to, if you are able to really merge with that white bright light. But what's happening is that it's so powerful, and if we are not used with that kind of intensity in the daily life, we don't have so much chance in that moment, And that's why the Tibetan tradition, they are training the people who doing in this bardo tradition, which is so beautiful and so deep. They are training all their life for this final leap, which
Yep.
is a very, very
Yep.
special moment. The thing is that in our civilizations nowadays, you see that we are so afraid of that. But why? Because
Yes.
extremely afraid of life. It's
Yes.
totally coming together when we can see that yeah, it can be truly in any moment, You don't know when it will be, It's not that you have to go and look for it, But it's there. It can truly be there. And then why are we afraid? Because we are living lives which are unfulfilled,
Hmm.
right? We are
Hmm.
just living with the brake on all the time,
Yep.
and so we are living we are afraid of life. And the thing is that it's not that just there's life after that, but there's also life before that,
Yes. Yep. Yep. I really like how you put that. You gave me goosebumps actually when you were talking about your father. Like extreme goosebumps. And I like how you brought in the channeling and the white light. One reason is my partner that works with me on this podcast did have a near death experience, and he wasn't very schooled in these matters of the metaphysical world. I actually kind of started trying to introduce him to this world, and he had no idea. When he described to me his near-death experience, he described this white, and he said it felt like there was just light everywhere. It didn't feel like I was in a room and there was like a light coming from something. It seemed like the light was emitted from everything. And this is a person that was he didn't know of any of near-death experience. It's not like he read any of this stuff, and it really read as if I was reading an account of near-death experience. And I also like how Amit, you put it all together by describing the field. It's similar to the description of Rupert Sheldrake's of morphic resonance, and David Bohm. I was reminded quite a bit of sea of potentiality and like choice points, and that your consciousness floats outside of this local space, and that maybe that's where our memories kind of drift, almost like a scent. And then if you bring a memory to mind of when you were a child and you remember that flower, that smell of that particular flower your grandmother's cooking, it kind of brings it all into play. Is that fair to use as an example of how channeling may work, or remote viewing, or any of these attributes?
Well, channeling actually is a little more mysterious than that. There are, of course, stuff that we do while we channel, or channelers channel. I've never been a channel, so I'm speaking about channelers' experience. But what they do, it's not the most relevant thing. What they are able to do, there's a subtle difference here. What they're able to do versus what they do.
Okay,
The
okay,
evidence is very clear now. We have
okay.
done very good scientific studies. I was part of that study that was made by a whole group.
Yes, for
Um,
Jay-Z Knight, yes.
and the studies, Stan Krippner led that group, which measures psychophysiological indicators. And really, the channel R psychophysiology completely changes.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that
Mm-hmm.
mean, though?
Mm-hmm.
In
Yep.
quantum construction, that's what character is about. The channeler temporarily borrows the character of an entity which has
Mm-hmm.
those qualities, like the entity may be a surgeon, and then the channeler performs surgery. What does he
Oh.
borrow from the channeled entity? He borrows the quality of attention. One thing surgery needs that ordinary people don't have is the quality of attention. How do
True.
we prove that? We prove that by measuring brain waves. The brain waves of people who are capable of doing a surgery is over 40 hertz. A
Oh
normal
yeah.
person, like a channeler, the brainwave could never exceed 30 or at most 35 hertz. Never.
Really?
And these channelers typically, when they're channeling, their brainwaves, channelers who channel doctors or surgeons, their brainwave typically goes up over 40 hertz. So
That's
this is the
gamma,
kind
right?
of we have today.
That's gamma. The 40 hertz above, that's gamma, correct, for brainwaves?
Excuse me?
Sorry, the 40 hertz and above, is that's the gamma
Yeah,
in
during the channeling. During the channeling. But after the
okay.
channeling is over, then the brainwaves return to their normal range,
Okay,
30
okay,
hertz.
I get it.
We know an example, right, Amit, from Brazil, John of God.
Mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm.
know, who was extreme. He helped many people. I mean, he was really channeling. And but then, of course, like there were some scandals in the last years. But he really, I mean, it was. We know him. We met. We went there, so we could witness, and the state was very high. So I could truly perceive that vibration was extremely high, and even the contact with the angelic realms. So no doubt, it was there when I was there. I could
Do you think
tell
there's
it
a
was.
relationship between people that have that access, and because it is common in reading previous history of other people that were channels of such, where they would have this ability, like you just mentioned, John of God, but then eventually they go
They
down
come
a
back to
darker
their
path.
character. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
possible because again, so they are embodying, but then
Yes.
again, when they come to themselves, they have to still work with their character, with whatever
Right.
is that. So
So do you think
So
that opening up that channel may allow for something a little bit more sinister to kind
something
of
that
creep
we
in?
don't do normally. But they're using the channeler's character and
Yes.
channeler's software that goes with the character. That's what they're using only during that channeling time. At other times
Okay.
when they're not channeling, their behavior goes back to their usual behavior.
yeah, so it's very interesting to think about that, because for me also, I gave a lot of thinking. So you would think that when something very, very high is channeled by any person, that person is transforming by itself. But it's not like that. It has to be a conscious choice, you know.
Ah,
So
I see.
still, you go back, like, I mean, whenever you can go in states of trance, for example, there are
Mhm.
positive states of trance where you can go. But after that, it's very important to work on your own transformation, because you
Ah,
may have all kind of things which come up, especially when you're engaging in these high energies, you know. And then
yeah.
it's even more, they may come up to purify themselves, you know. But you need to look at them, you need to take them and truly work with them, and it's so much work. You see it in so many other cases.
Is that why you said put such an importance on the term? What did you call it? Spiritual hygiene,
Mental hygiene.
mental hygiene. Sorry.
Well, yeah, it starts from there, everything. Without that, what do we
It's
do?
part of the care of mental hygiene before such phenomenon can be done by a person channeling.
Right.
Because if your mind does not cannot hold the attention or things like that, the channel entity will never choose to correlate with such a person, because
That's a good
the
point.
person will not be able to hold the suspension for very long.
That's a
So the
good point.
channel entity has some qualities that the channeler and channel entity has some resonating qualities that they have chosen each other to correlate.
Like a
So
contract. I like that. I like how you put that. It's kind of like a contract, an agreement.
kind of a contract, not exactly a contract, because the channel entity can break and they do break. It's their volition. The channeler cannot do it by their by wishing it.
That's true. Good
Time
point.
and time again, we have found evidence for that. That. And the other thing that you have to be very careful. I studied a channeled entity for some years because I was going to meet this channel and channeler regularly, and I had the opportunity to watch it. It's the character that the entity's character that the channeler is borrowing. But the information that the channeler speaks about, this is where a lot of deception takes place. The
Okay.
information does not come from the channeled entity. The information
Okay.
comes from the channeler's brain.
Okay.
So
Yes. Yes. I
when a
see.
channeled entity is like Einstein and the channeler is talking kind of stupidly, although
Yeah.
although there is aspects of character which is different if you really are kind and looking at the person in all fullness. And
Mhm.
this is very important to catch, because I had the opportunity of looking up close. So this channeler was when she was channeling, then the entity's character changes. Character becomes very poetic, philosophical,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
had beautiful discussions with this channeled entity during this phase. But of course, I'm speaking to the channeler physical appearance, but actually, I could tell that the character has changed. Whereas when I would have dinner with this person, then she's very ordinary. Her character changes. The
Yeah.
information she
Yeah.
gives is coming from her always, but the way the information is presented, that's what changes.
I see. That makes a lot of sense because it almost seems like the entity is using the software that's in the actual channel to kind of like filter their information through, I guess, is kind of how you can kind of tangibly put it, I guess, for
Yeah.
lack of a better example.
So,
I'd like to go talk about the creativity aspect of the book because you guys focused a lot on that. And when I saw that in the book, I was like, this is the first book that I've seen that's about the brain. And that's, first of all, you guys did a great job because it's not just about the mechanics of the brain, it's far more than just that. And you incorporated a deep dive into consciousness, which I appreciated. And sometimes you find that in brain books, but not often. And you guys talked about creativity and its importance. And as someone that participates in that world a lot, the creative world, I can attest that there is most certainly an aspect of it that's non-local and unexplainable. And anytime I participated in it in a way that I almost kind of improvise, whenever I do like improvisation style writing, I notice that for days after, I have far more intuition, far more synchronicities, and I'm far more tapped in. And the only thing I can attest to it is that is it's similar to when I emphasize a lot of time for meditation, I also see the same sort of result. But when I write a song or I'm writing a song in my head and I'm just doing it free form, just improvising, my God, I don't know how to describe some of the experiences I have. So could you guys talk a little bit about creativity? Because I really like how you guys did that.
Valentina, you go.
Me first. Okay. So I'll just give you, because I don't know how much time you still have left, but we have to give you the stages, I guess,
Yes.
at
Yeah.
least that. Creativity, again, refers to the way we tap into the potential, right? So
Mm-hmm.
again, after choosing something, whether it's a process of you're working with art, right? But it has to be because you're working with art and music. It means you already have a certain archetype. Remember the word
Yes.
archetype?
Yes.
So archetypes are referring to the highest, most noble thinking and feeling that man can conceive. It's something which you never truly touch. It's as if it's pulling you upwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something which is inspiring you. It makes you, it gives you wings, you know. So without, that's the first eye. We speak about seven eyes, you know, eye.
Mm-hmm.
So the eye, the first eye, inspiration. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you, that's the thing in the movie The Secret, didn't really give the secret.
Yes. Agreed
Besides
fully.
the fact that it's not explaining the process of resonance, which
Yes.
makes the world move,
Mm-hmm.
but also it didn't speak about these things because, again, you may have the highest intent for yourself, the most intelligent thing, because you know that you want that, is not enough. If you don't have inspiration, so that thing which takes you from a contracted state to an expanded state, you start
Yeah.
with that your day, you end with that your day, you know, something that makes sense so much that you want to shape your life according to that, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
without that, which is part of living a life of meaning, you're not getting into any kind of real satisfaction in life, you know.
Yep. Yep.
People who are healing from cancers, you know, they all discover something with meaning, something which makes them live with inspiration. Yeah. So first time inspiration, and
Mm-hmm.
then of course it's intention. But again, before intention comes the stage, like the stage where you work with attention. So
Mm-hmm.
attention related with the power of choice, developing discernment, and all that. And then you choose that you make the intent, and you don't change it like you change the socks. You know, we just put an intent and we change another one, we take another one and another one, like as if you know, and we wonder why it's not working
I do that
because
a
we
lot.
lack the perseverance, we lack it. Yes, yeah, and women again, women, because women get so much, so special and very strong intuitions over and over, even in the dreams. But
Yeah.
still, we don't take them further. Why? You know, because we lack the belly area, we lack the self-respect and self-love also, and all that. If we would
Yes.
love ourselves, we would truly live this life of meaning. You know, like
Yes.
following what is this archetypes, what is for us, what is that which words that you live for and you die for. Kind of, we lost this kind of passion. You know, we need to
Yep.
get back.
I
So
agree.
inspiration, then intention, right?
Okay.
So this is the beginning. And then you play this game with the intention, which there are stages for the intention. You start from yourself, then for the greater good, and then you surrender it so that it's happening according to the movement of consciousness or God's will. And then you stay in silence. So these stages, I told them briefly, but you need to put it because it's so beautiful. Initially, you manifest the intent to forgive somebody, you know. It's not going to be so easy. So the stages don't come by, you know, they manifest from one to the other. But as they
Yes.
manifest, you feel greater and greater. You really feel it. You force it a little bit maybe, you know. But first of all, you have to have that inspiration, you know. And even if you don't have it, it's not that you don't have to act because you don't have it. You know, you search
Yes.
for it.
Yes.
You know, so put your question in the evening when you go to bed. What is my dharma? Ask your guardian angel because we have each of us. We have our guardian angel, which is there related with our dharma. And in the dreams, that's so important how we can get all kind of answers. Okay, Amit, next you can say about the others because I have so many things to say.
So then comes intuition. So these ideas of the archetypes, they come to us when we end the intention with silence. So intuition can come. Next stage is imagination. I take the intuitive idea, which is just an idea, basic like a blossoming flower, just the bud. That's the intuition. And then I develop it through imagination, projection based on what I know. And then I surrender again. And this surrender, it produces a very quantum process called unconscious processing.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
the
Yes.
unconscious where an idea is picked up that you generated in the conscious, but made into a proliferation of wave-like possibilities. Many, many possibilities open up. And you do this repeatedly, do, that's what we call it.
Yeah.
And then the insight happens. So unconscious processing is called incubation. So
Hmm.
imagination, incubation, and then insight. That's the sixth one, sixth eye.
Yep.
Insight is where the novel idea, the creative idea, the new idea that will change things, that will disturb the universe. That's coming then. It comes suddenly. How do I know? It always comes with a surprise. Aha. People
Yes.
call it
Yes.
aha experience.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we take the insight and make it manifest. We make a product. The product can be outer product like a book, a scientific theory, or the product also can be a new I, a new
Hmm.
station for the self that we call soul. That's how we make the soul, by creative ideas and then manifesting in changing the way I think, the way I live. Okay.
And for example, if you work with love, if you put your intent about love, you need to become that love. So that's
That's
interesting.
the
You need
tricky
to
part.
become that
Yes.
active love anyway. You need to embody that. So
Yep.
that's the beauty. Like you're embodying eventually the archetypes, those divine attributes. That's the point why we are here. We are not here to just run away and in the caves and that's it. We are here to embody these archetypes. And why now? When it's so difficult. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yes.
just to say, like when Amit said the imagination, don't think
Yep.
it's just the imagination like that. It's a focused imagination with a supramental level.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like something which you are working, for example, like I said, with angels. So with realms which exist, but they are not usually under our eyes, stuff like that.
Oh, that's a really great breakdown, guys. That I really enjoyed how you guys put all that in the book and just right now as well. It's really hard to compress all that information so fast, and you really did a great job. I don't want to take too much more of your time. We didn't really get to a lot of archetypes, subjects of like Carl Jung and how that pertains to the development of all of us. But I like how you guys threw that in, and I hope the listeners kind of really look out for this book because it is incredible. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. I'd like to talk about what do you have coming down the pipeline because I think one of the books is on integrative medicine, and is there another one on awakening intelligence? I think is another book you're working on. First of all, the first book, Quantum Spirituality, I like how it ties into quantum brain. I just started Quantum Spirituality, so I'm really excited to kind of go through it a bit more. But I can see from one book to the other. Now, can you tell us a little bit about what you got coming down the pipeline in terms of those books and other projects you're working with?
Yeah. But what do you want to know? I mean,
But there are okay. Let me because I mean we do a lot of things. First of all, we have this master and PhD school.
Yes.
It's a program, and we are so happy with that. It gives us so much challenge and work and so much creativity and insights. It's just amazing, and it's happening. So we just have the first graduate. Now in this period, we are
Congratulations.
celebrating them in this next weekend. And we have also the scientific journal, which is coming out now, finally, in quantum science.
Hmm.
And of course, we have a few books also on Enneagram and personality types. Also, we have really quite a few, and they are all of them almost ready.
You said
It's so
Enneagram
really
as in Gurdjieff?
it
uh,
just, yeah, what
I'm
has
sorry, you
happened?
said an Enneagram?
Enneagrams and personalities and archetypes together,
Yeah,
kind
oh,
of,
okay, yeah.
including
Like,
also astrology. So it will be a beautiful book, but all of them, they have their own, as if they have their own
absolutely.
soul.
No,
So it was
I
so
meant a reference
beautiful.
to Gurdjieff. If you're referring to Gurdjieff in the Enneagram and his fourth wave, so that's okay.
Manu, can we talk about all this in a second interview? Because
100%. Yes, please. No problem. Anytime.
Great.
Well,
uh,
where can everybody find your work?
we have, well, yeah, Valentina, you give the website and
Okay,
the
so we
people.
have amitgoswami.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll add all
And
of them.
we have weekly webinars on Facebook and YouTube. This week it will be on quantum healing in times of COVID.
Of course.
And yeah, so you find us on Instagram. I'm Valentina _Onisor, and Amit
Okay.
has three of them, but you'll find
No,
you'll find.
sorry. I'd love to have you interview us again on our
Yeah,
book, which is
100%.
you're
Quantum.
so wonderful.
Oh,
I feel
thank
so
you.
good with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like
Thank
so
you.
much flow. We could stay with you 5 hours.
Yes, so could I. And thank you so
And,
much for your time, both of you.
and make the time advance that we want to talk more than 1 hour. 1 hour is not much time to
I
really
agree.
elaborate the subject. You are a good interviewer at carrying out
Oh,
all
thank
kinds
you.
of things that
Yeah, yeah, but
workshop
I think for
has.
the sake of the audience, for the sake of the audience, 1 hour is enough. We can have a few.
But
I'm totally willing. I was really hoping you would say all that.
Wonderful.
Okay.
By the way, something you will like. We
Yeah.
had something about extraterrestrials recently. If you mail me, if you
Yes.
send me an email, I will send you
Oh, yes,
the
please
papers.
do.
You
Please
will
do.
like
Please
them.
do. Okay, awesome. I'll put all that in the show notes, how everyone can contact you. And honestly, everyone, look forward to the next interview we do with these two wonderful people. I'm just going to say
okay.
goodbye right now. Bye bye, friends. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.